Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 76th episode of the Driving Digital Standup. Today, we're in episode 3, covering the attributes and competency areas of digital trailblazers. I have a huge guest today. His name is Joe Puglisi. He's going to give us the board directors, investors, and CIO advisors' view on who are the right people to lead digital transformation initiatives. Hi, I'm Isaac Sacolick. I lead Star CIO, a company that helps organizations with their digital transformation leadership. I wrote a book called Digital Trailblazer and a bestseller, Driving Digital. And you're going to learn a ton from Joe Puglisi today, including his advice on communicating with boards. Let's get started with the attributes and competency areas of digital trailblazers from Joe Puglisi's vantage point. Hello, Joe, and welcome to the Driving Digital Stand-Up. I know you've been on many of my coffee hours. We talk all the time. You're practically a neighbor. We break bread as often as we can. You and I share some very similar philosophies. And so I'm really excited to hear your opinions on digital trailblazer competency areas and your 5 top attributes of digital trailblazers, speaking from a board director, investor, and a CIO advisor. Joe, tell us a little bit of what you're working on these days.
Sure. Well, it's good to be here, Isaac. Always a pleasure. I have recently done an interim CIO role for a holding company that was converting ERP systems to a common platform, the usual stuff. And I continue to run the North Andover Investors Collaborative as their chairman and co-manager. We evaluate startup companies, and that exposes a lot of new and interesting technologies to me.
Excellent. I mean, I know you've done a ton of ERP work across your career. It's sort of like you can't get past it. It almost brings us to our very first competency area of a digital trailblazer, somebody who is really empowered and asked to lead a digital transformation initiative. And I loved your first pick. You said, as a leader, you need to be able to be a teacher, be able to question status quo, be able to listen to your team, and to be able to facilitate a conversation. So why did you pick that one? It's such an interesting choice.
Well, I actually did a brief stint as an adjunct professor at NYU teaching technology to MBA students. And that ability to convey foreign thoughts and concepts, the ability to convince people that this is the right system for implementation, the ability to question where are we now, why are we moving forward? I mean, all of these attributes are really important. It's important to be a mentor, to train not only the people that are going through the conversion, the other employees or associates in the firm, but also your own staff.
Yeah, Joe, the one word that really signs out to me of the 4 is facilitator. I think of sort of the 2 ends of the book when you're trying to do transformation. You have some folks who want to run 90 miles per hour, go right into solutions, not even sure about what problem they're solving for and why. And very often 3 or 4 people solving the same problem 5 or 6 different ways. And then you have people who are lagging, some are even detractors, who are just happy with how things are running today. Talk about some of the things that you do to facilitate what the direction should be, why it's a priority. How do you go about doing that?
I'm reminded of Chuck Martin's rule of thirds. You may have read this in one of his books.
I did.
But he talks about the group of people who are always willing to embrace change. They can be convinced pretty readily. There's a group of people that are open to change, but they need a little bit of coaching. And then there's always that last group of people who, when you tell them you're going to paint the doors red, they insist on painting the doors blue. and it's a little bit of gamesmanship to get the first group done because they're an easy target. And when you get the second group done, you have a little bit of leverage. I used this back in my MCOR days to convince a very large group of independent corporate CIOs whose egos were larger than the buildings they constructed, I used this as leverage to convince the holdout group by getting some spokespersons from the groups that had converted. And some of them, I will say, reluctantly, but they did eventually fess up to the fact that it was a good move.
Yeah, what it makes me think of is just you got to wear different personalities at different times depending on your audience. And it's a real good lead in for personal competencies, our second competency area. You picked the same one I did, and I remember when I said it on the coffee hour, you said, "Oh, Isaac, that's a good one." Mine was calm, and I expanded the scope around this now. I call it calm and emotional regulation. And it's really that situation where you're under tremendous pressure to move transformation as fast as you can, move off legacy systems or address a security issue. But the reality is you're working with a lot of people. And, that's the heart of transformation. And some of them aren't going to be easy on you, right? So tell me about how you regulate your emotions. I remember at times I wanted to throw a chair out the window. I was so upset about something. How do you regulate that?
If you talk with any of my former staff members and you say to them, RCAT, they will know it came from me. RCATT, RCAT. If I said it once, Isaac, I said it 1,000 times. Remain calm at all times. It's a mantra that I really lean on and drill into my staff because there's no point in panicking. Poop occurs. It's a polite way of saying it. And when it does, one just has to be ready to step back and think about what moves we can make to evade the block or solve the issue. Just remaining that calm problem solver thinker. I'm going to come back to that in one of the other attributes here. Just remaining in that sort of mindset, you can work through almost anything.
Yeah, I think that's terribly important for leaders because if you propagate chaos, if you propagate anger, it's going to amplify how people are really feeling inside. We are all feeling that way. I mean, in Digital Trailblazer, I share my inner thoughts. I have no problem dropping an F-bomb in my head, but I'm rarely doing that in front of the staff, right? I'm presenting that, let's figure this out together. Let's unwind this, whatever the issue is. And tell people, look, if it's Friday and you're going home with baggage, let's talk about this. I literally had this conversation with somebody just yesterday. And it's because, a digital transformation is not 3 months. It's not even 3 years, right? It's a competency that organizations are going to go through over and over again. And if you lose your mind over the latest crisis, it's really hard to get your staff motivated to continue to challenge how things are working. A part of that really leads into, this was another interesting one from you. Transformation means to me a competency about looking how not just to understand what the problem and opportunity is, but how do you bring the organization forward and drive transformation with that investment. And you picked savvy presenter. So I'm just going to leave that out there. Why does a digital trailblazer, why must they be a savvy presenter? And what does savvy mean here?
It means being able to convey the thoughts, the rationale, the purpose, the intent, the outcomes that are going to happen in a way that the audience can understand. When you're presenting to the board, it's a different game than when you're perhaps dealing with the marketing department or when you're presenting to your own staff. I think what's really, really important, Isaac, is to read the audience. Are they receiving the message? Are they understanding what you're conveying? Or are they just head nodding and can't wait to get out of the room? If you've got that sort of intuition, if you can read the faces, the expressions that people have while you're speaking, and adjust dynamically during the course of that presentation so that you get things back on track, I think you can be much more successful and have a more successful transformation experience.
I think you're spot on when you talk about audiences. I mean, we get so focused on what the message is, we lose sight of the fact that to drive transformation, there's different groups of people, there's different personas, they have different incentives. I want you to go deeper into presenting to the board, right? It's not something a lot of people have a tremendous amount of experience. But as soon as that digital trailblazer has gotten through all the hoops around a big idea, right? They've built a business case, they've talked to customers, they've got some internal alignment, and the CEO comes to them and says, you're the one presenting it to the board in 3 weeks, right? And maybe it's that trailblazer's first time doing that. So what does savvy presenter mean there? And now you know who the audience is.
So if you present to the board, you know that the board has a lot of material to go over. They've been given a huge board book before they ever got to the table. They've had a chance to read through and digest it. So go in with bullet points, cut to the chase, not a lot of small talk. Your time will no doubt be limited, and so make the most effective use of the time you have. Do not talk down to the board. Don't assume that they don't understand anything. And the flip side of that is don't assume that they do understand everything. So make your presentation crystal clear. Let me add one footnote to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely possible that in the 3 weeks between the time when you're tasked with preparing for this presentation to the board and the actual day of the board meeting, there may be other priorities that have come up. There may be some other more pressing matters that the board has to focus on. Know when it's a good time to present and when it's a good time to perhaps defer to more pressing matters or higher priorities. You'll get your turn in the batting cage, but don't blow it on a day when you're not going to get their attention, no matter how good your presentation is.
Yeah, that's really good advice, especially when the CEO comes back to you and says, I still want you to present even though you're recovering from a security outage or something like that. It's really going to be hard to get their interest. The only thing I would add that you and I talk a lot about is avoiding the jargon, right? Really explain things in a language that they're going to understand, what Gen AI means to them, or, what a digital twin means to them. You're going to get a spectrum of what that language is. And very few people truly understand this, that you are given the opportunity to include supplementary material in the board package. You can explain it all there. Most board members that I know will page flip through them. They don't like showing up to a board meeting uneducated. But that, so you have room to explain all this stuff to them and the rationale and why you're doing things. But then really use that session to explain what's the business impact, right? What are we really trying to get at here? Let's shift gears. Let's go to another competency area. When I thought of people skills, I thought about lateral and down. How are we working with our peers around transformation, and how are we working with people who report to us and sometimes secondary reports to us? We're trying to take a handful of people that are starting our transformation programs, and we know in 2 or 3 years' time, we better have several initiatives, some of them pizza-sized teams, some of them quite a bit larger, and we need to start building momentum around how we're changing the business. And you said your most important people skill is relationship building. Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
You're going to need allies in every corner of the organization. You're going to need allies in the C-suite. You're going to need allies in the middle management tier. And you're certainly going to need allies and close comrades in arms right in your own backyard, your staff. So who among them are you going to be able to build that relationship where they trust you and they trust in what you're working on, and they will advocate for you and back you and be part of that third that welcomes the change with open arms? Your own staff have to be behind it, believe in it. And it's hard to build those relationships, but you really got to work hard at that.
It's something that you have to build ahead of where you need it, right? I really like the word allies here. One of the things that I coach trailblazers on is that as soon as you're given the mic to lead a transformation initiative, you might as well paint that target on your back, right? There's, transformation means somebody is going to change their job. It's not going to be what it is today. It's not going to be the same incentive financially for them sometimes in terms of how they've made their money in the past. Sometimes you're going to you're given a charter and an investment in one area, while 2 or 3 other areas of the business are not getting that budget to be worked on, right? So transformation is not about making everybody happy. Transformation is about making prudent business decisions around where the organization's going, about what types of investments are going to yield outcomes. And you need those allies behind you, right? People who are going to advocate for you in terms of what you've prioritized, in terms of how you're doing things. And that's not going to happen by calling them up and saying, hey, I got a problem here. Can you go step in? You want them to know you have a problem and to step in before you even know that somebody is pointing an arrow in your back. I also think about the staff, right? When I say, we're going to be focused on data operations, or we're going to change how we're operating our security and network operations centers, right? That's going to mean different things to people. They're going to have different ideas over what technologies, what process changes, what their role is in these things. And again, you need really strong relationships with folks so that when you start talking about an initiative and you start working on a vision statement together, you can come to some consensus around that.
I think the relationship is a two-way street as well, Isaac. It's not only that you are building that relationship so that you can gain the alliance with other people or the support of other people, but it's so that you too can provide them with the support, the guidance, point out the opportunities inherent in these changes, and make those people feel better as well. It's really a bonding exercise to form those relationships. Yes, you need to do them in advance, but you need to sustain them and, in fact, enhance and grow those relationships throughout the transformation.
That's right. And that, your last competency area, my competency area that I came up with plays into that. Somewhere in here in digital transformation, there are digital skills. And what that means is, looking at your opportunities and your customers, what you're trying to impact, what's the business model you're going after, what's the operational impact. And you got to oversee and facilitate that conversation around solutions. What are the trade-offs? And your answer around this was, I need somebody who's a digital trailblazer, who's a problem solver and a simplifier. So let's talk about problem solving first and simplifying. Why are these so important?
You're going to encounter a lot of problems during this transformation. In fact, you're going to encounter a lot of problems throughout your life. So if you can't sit back and have some critical thinking skills that will help you navigate through, come up with creative solutions, and then execute against those solutions, you're going to have a hard time of it. So I think problem solving skills are really, really important. And frankly, that's something that we need to work on. The second part of it,
Simplifier.
Thank you. It's the old adage of divide and conquer. When a problem is so massive and overwhelming that you just get tongue-tied, you don't know which way to go first, just be able to break it down. Again, it's critical thinking. Break it down into its component parts and let's tackle it piece by piece and get through it.
So problem breakdown, but also being able to almost think on the fly a little bit of, right? We can't have a prescriptive way of approaching a transformation problem because we want to tackle some small rocks, put things out in front of customers, get feedback, and then when that customer's in front of you, you want to challenge them and say, how are we going to do things different? Is this providing value? Is it slowing you down? Are you getting some thoughts about how we may improve the solution that we're putting in front of you? The other aspect of simplifier that I think of is what I call responding to the jargon darts, right? When we talk about solutions very quickly, in any category, there's multiple partners, solution providers, technologies, categories of technology, whether you're following Gartner or Forrester or any of the other analyst firms, and everybody's going to have their lens around this terminology. And very soon, when you bring a group together around brainstorming a solution, you're going to get those jargon bombs thrown at you. And somewhere in that room, hopefully there's a customer or a stakeholder, and they're going to be looking at you and saying, what the heck are we talking about? How do you handle that, Joe?
Well, I think you have to understand that for my philosophy is and always has been, it's business technology. It's not information technology or IT, it's BT. The B comes before the T. If you can't articulate the value of the technology that's being discussed in terms that your business customers can understand, you don't deserve to be a trailblazer. You've got to put it in business terms first and foremost.
I think that's a great way to end this, Joe. Your 5 attributes from leadership. You selected teacher, questions, listens, and facilitates. For personal competencies, calm and emotional regulation. Transformation, you need to be a savvy presenter. For people skills, a relationship builder. And for digital, problem solver and simplifier. Joe, you've been a great friend and partner. Collaborator. I look forward to doing many more things with you in the future. How do people reach out to you about your services, or just to be able to reach out and ask you a question?
Well, the easiest thing is to just connect with me through LinkedIn. I do accept messages from anybody, connection requests. You can also reach me directly at my personal email. It's J Puglisi, first initial, last name, at msn.com. Or feel free to phone me. 914-623-8508.
Joe, you're the most open person I know, most honest and trustworthy person I know, honestly. And I'm so glad you're able to do this recording with me at the Driving Digital Stand-Up. And look forward. We're going to have some more fun with coffee hours over the next year. I'm committing another year to it, see it grow as a way to share, facilitate, and teach those who are behind us, who are driving transformation in their organization. Thanks for joining again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Isaac, and you as well.